Don't touch that dial. You're tuned in to the Dread Podcast Network.
Welcome to Development Hell. For every horror movie that hits VOD, countless others end up DOA. Development Hell is the podcast dedicated to unearthing these cursed horror productions. We're going to find out what went wrong, and then decide if these titles still stand a shot at the green light. I am your host, Josh Corngut. I am a filmmaker in Toronto, Canada. This podcast is a proud member of the Dread Podcast Network.
Available now from Dread. Val. Finn, a wanted criminal, hides out with an escort named Val, a demon. Val offers to make his problems disappear if he follows her rules. She has been expecting him all along, and it won't be easy to escape Val's dungeon. Val is out now everywhere you buy or rent movies, and on Blu-ray November 2nd.
Welcome, everybody, to a brand new episode of Halloween is Cancelled, our mini-series within Development Hell, documenting 5 unmade, fairly outrageous Halloween sequels. Today, we are tackling Halloween 6, aka Halloween 666, The Origin, aka Quentin Tarantino's Halloween 6, ? We have a very, very special returning guest today. We have Jinx with us again. Jinx is a writer over at Bloody Disgusting. He is a podcaster. Jason, aka Jinx, can you reintroduce yourself to the Development Hell audience? Even though I'm sure you don't need to. Everyone remembers you. But I'd like a recap.
1, thank you very much for having me back. 2, I write for Bloody Disgusting. I have a handful of columns there, including Phantom Limbs, which delves into unmade movies and whatnot. It's kind of my baby. That's my favorite column out of all the ones that I write. And as you noted, I am a podcaster. I have a podcast called Scream Addicts, which is currently kind of on the last leg of its special project called Hammer Pub, wherein co-hosts Paul Farrell and Allie Chappell and we have a few drinks and we provide running commentaries for Hammer horror films. And other than that, I'm just excited to be back.
We are so excited that you're back. Honestly, we kind of wish we could have you on every episode. You are truly the Development Hell aficionado, kind of like celeb of the internet. Yeah, we're big fans of everything you do. We try to keep up to date with Phantom Limbs, stealing all sorts of information for this episode. And I do kind of feel like we're kind of like this yin and yang of the unmade horror movie universe, and I think that's really beautiful. I approached you to be in this Halloween is Cancelled miniseries, and I asked you which unmade Halloween project would you want to talk about, and right away you said Halloween 6. So I'm wondering, why Halloween 6? Why unmade Halloween 6? What draws you to this super bizarre topic?
So if I recall correctly, you offered me a couple of options, and I looked them over, and I was like, okay, these would be good, but can we please do Halloween 6 instead? Halloween 6 is an important movie for me in that it's the film that kind of really opened my eyes to the idea of alternate cuts and unmade films. If we can cast all the way back to the mid-90s, long before, back when the internet was in its infancy, there was no social media aside from hopping on to like message boards on horror websites and whatnot if you wanted to get your fix. And other than that, you just had the news that you would read in Fangoria if you were a horror fan as to what exactly was happening in the genre at the time. And being a relatively new fan, my first ever issue, when I started collecting Fangoria in earnest, it was number 151. And there was this little sidebar that talked about this cut of Halloween 6 that was making the rounds called the producer's cut, that was kind of, making its way around conventions on bootleg VHSs and whatnot, that basically held a completely different version of the film. And this sidebar detailed what all those differences were. And to like 14-year-old me, it was mind blowing that there was a completely different version of the film out there. Keep in mind, I grew up on VHS. DVD was still in the future at this point. The notion of being able to see deleted scenes and alternate endings and alternate cuts of movies and whatnot, it was just, something I had no frame of reference for. So that was sort of the movie that kind of opened my eyes to that. And then on top of that, reading more about Halloween 6, I found out that there were going to be different versions of it. There was the Phil Rosenberg script. There was potentially going to be a Tarantino Halloween 6. And again, I think that's really where the bug bit me initially, when it comes to movies that never were. That's sort of what sent my mind reeling the first time. And as a result, Halloween 6 has always been kind of I'm kind of a softie for it. I will admit I didn't really care for the movie when I first caught it as a teen, but eventually I came around on it, and I will admit the movie that we have now, both theatrical and producer's cut, I kind of love them both.
Oh, I love them both too. Yeah, you couldn't have picked a more appropriate topic for this podcast and for a Halloween movie in general. It is, okay, Halloween 6, the unmade versions, and the actual released version are the most chaotic installment of all the Halloweens by far. And I would say probably the most troubled of all the Halloween production histories by far, which makes it just like a chef's kiss topic for this podcast. I'm going to give a little bit of information on the Halloween 6 we all love and know before we get into talking a little bit more about why we love or don't love that sequel. So, Halloween 6, directed by Joe Chappelle and written by Daniel Farrens, was released on September 29th, 1995. It was made for a $5 million budget and raked in about $15 million, which is not bad. General feelings about this strange little movie. You kind of were hinting to it, but what's your overall relationship with Halloween 6?
Well, again, I this is kind of funny. This is going to be embarrassing, but what the hell? We're here to tell the truth. I grew up. The first Halloween that I ever saw was Halloween 5. It wasn't even VHS. It was like pay-per-view, and I watched it over and over again. And admittedly, I think every boy of a certain age who especially burgeoning horror fans, if they got Halloween 5, like, around 9 or 10, we had a crush on Danielle Harris. Like, that's just,
Of course.
And, I love that movie. I backtracked and watched Halloween 4, and I loved that story, and I loved the Jamie Lloyd story, and I loved the mystery of the Man in Black. And so I always wanted to know who in the hell the Man in Black was. But unfortunately, that answer wouldn't come for a very long time. And by the time that Halloween 6 came out, I'd backtracked and watched, 1, 2, 3, which I loved at the time, all the way back then. I'll be hipstery about it. I was first. Damn it. I like that movie. And, I could not wait to see 6 when it turned out that it was finally coming out. And I remember I went opening weekend. It was a sleepy Sunday. I caught a matinee. And here's this character that I loved, that I was genuinely invested in as a fan, being played by a different actor. I'm not knocking J.C. Brandy. I think she actually does a very good job in the opening of the film. But, it's a different actor. And she is unceremoniously killed in the first 10, 15 minutes of the movie, which is a recurring thing in the Halloween franchise. Laurie, how many times has she been offed unceremoniously? You have our lead, Rachel, from Halloween 4, just, offed in the first 15 minutes of Halloween.
That was rude. That was not okay.
Yeah, and now we have little Jamie Lloyd, grown up, pregnant, and I don't even want to think about that. And then she is shoved onto like this farm implement, whatever the hell it is, and she is torn up like any old victim in a Friday the 13th movie. And I gotta say,
it's horrible.
Yeah, and plus, it probably didn't do the movie any favors with me that, seeing on like horror movie message boards and Fangoria letters pages, people bashing the living hell out of the movie. And so I'll admit, I was kind of a snob about number 6 for a while. I didn't care for it, and admittedly, I kid you not, it depressed me. A fictional character's death depressed me for a couple of days. I remember, God bless her, Ms. Ruggiero, my what was it? She would have been my third period Spanish teacher. She asked me, of course, we all had Spanish names at the time, and I just remember staring, off into the distance in one class, probably a few days. It was like a Tuesday or a Wednesday after I got
Very
the
Laurie
movie.
Strode of you.
Yeah, and she's just like, Javier, que lástima. And just asking like, what's wrong? And I was just like, a character that I really liked in a series of movies died. And she just kind of stared at me and realized that she would never ask me what the problem was ever again.
No, she regretted it.
but like I eventually kind of softened on it. I remember buying what was it? A Brother Kane's album that had the song "And Fools Shine on it, and I listened to that over and over. Right before Halloween H2O came out, I finally found this website called Video Junkie, which was amazing. They had everything back in the day before DVDs. If you could imagine a time when you couldn't easily get a hold of Argento or Fulci films or various Japanese horror flicks or really anything, Video Junkie had your back. They would actually have these VHS pulls from Japanese laserdiscs with annoying subtitles and whatnot. And even though I was, I didn't have a whole hell of a lot of money at the time, I was just a teenager, but I could hop onto that website and read these synopses of all of these crazy sounding movies that were unlike anything I was getting out of American cinema. And so for that reason alone, Video Junkie was the best. But I did eventually buy a VHS copy of The Stendhal Syndrome, the Argento film, before it was ever available in the US because I thought Fangoria made it sound amazing, and I do love that movie. And I bought the producer's cut of Halloween 6.
Oh.
It arrived the day that Halloween H2O hit theaters. And it came in the mail. I cracked it open, and I was able to do the best double feature ever by watching the producer's cut of 6 in this smeary, terrible, like 4th generation VHS copy of the movie, and it was the most exciting thing ever. And then immediately I go from that to watching H2O, on a 40-foot screen in widescreen, like 35 millimeter. And no, eventually I came around on 6, and I got to the point where, I didn't even feel guilty about it anymore. It was no longer a guilty pleasure. I was like, you know what? I'm going to take up for this movie. I think it's fantastic. I love what it does with the mythology. I love that it takes big swings. I love that, it's just bold at a point in the series where it should probably be lazy and just rehash all that's come before. And it doesn't do that, and, yeah, so I dig it. No matter, I know that a lot of people will sort of excuse their fandom of the movie by saying, well, the producer's cut, sure, which I love the producer's cut and I do think it is superior. But you know what? I'll go ahead and say it. I think the theatrical cut is a lot of fun too.
I prefer the theatrical cut, if I'm going to be honest with you.
Oh,
I
wow,
saw
okay.
the producer cut in theaters, like I'm going to say 4 or 5 years ago. I don't think I liked it as much, if I'm going to be fully honest with you. Yeah, I'm going to age myself a little bit here. So I was very young when I saw Halloween 6 for the first time. And it was the first Halloween movie I'd ever seen. I'd rented it with my dad. I was just getting into horror. I was just allowed to be getting into horror. And we finally, I don't know why it took us so long to get to the Halloween franchise, but we rented the most recent, I'm assuming, Halloween movie. And it happened to be that one. And we watched it knowing nothing about the series at all. And yeah, at that first Jamie death, where she gets absolutely horrifyingly mangled by farm equipment, my dad was like, no, we're turning this off. So we didn't get to finish it. And because of that scene, I think he was under the impression that these movies were like Saw level violent, horrible, and disgusting based on that first kill. And it is shocking. I still think to this day, maybe it's because of my nostalgia for it, but I still think that's a pretty unnecessarily brutal kill.
It's crass,
Yes, crass is a good word. It's rotten. I had a guest use that word not long ago, and I have to say it forever. Andy Scott. Thank you. Yeah, it's a rotten moment. So then it was a really long time before we even rented the very first one. And then I finally got into my Halloween journey from there. But yeah, we had a bit of a slow start based on Halloween 6. And yeah, it gave me a very strange, sort of stunted intro to the series. I also love this film. I have to say I oscillate on my feelings about Halloween 6. I go from thinking it's trash to thinking it's really good and fun. And I rewatched it this weekend, and I have to say I officially am on the side of loving it again. It is silly. It is genuinely scary in parts. It is absolutely outrageous. It's everything that a late, like a sixth film in a franchise should be. The Druid stuff, but I love it for who it is. And also, what's the name of that older lady that gives the spiel about Samhain? She's cool.
Oh, Mrs. Blankenship.
So yeah, I have to say Halloween 6 is definitely in my good books right now. Although, stop doing our heroines so dirty, Halloween franchise. You gotta stop doing this to me.
Well, I will say, I will give the movie props too. I think it works so well because it had a really solid foundation with Daniel Farron's script. You could tell that it was written by a true fan of the franchise who had tried to tie together all these disparate elements and, was diving deep in into the mythology that was even presented not in the movies, but in the original novelization of the first film written by Curtis Richards. There's the 6-page prologue. I don't know if you've ever read it. If not, I will send you snaps of it because I think you would love it. It opens like hundreds of years ago with a Celtic princess being murdered by a jilted lover, or not even a jilted lover, like kind of a guy named Enda who was infatuated with her.
I'm
and
listening.
She and her, lover, as it were, her husband to be, basically do this guy dirty. And so on the night of their wedding, their celebration, there's a big bonfire. Their entire tribe is dancing around the fire. Everyone's having a fun time. And Enda pulls a knife and murders both she and her husband in front of the entire, Celtic clan. And so as a result, to get even with him, the high priest basically curses Enda and his bloodline for all time. And then the book, the novelization, basically makes it seem as though this curse followed one specific bloodline, which obviously turns out to be the Myers bloodline. And so you have kind of like the Mrs. Blankenship equivalent at the beginning of that novelization, talking about how, Michael's grandfather, there were issues with him when he had gone silent and, horrible things, some nameless horrible thing had happened. And so you get the idea that what is driving Michael in that first story, at least according to the novelization, is the result of like a Celtic curse. And so I love that Farron's actually plucked that idea out of the novelization and wove it into the fabric of his film sequel. I think that's really neat. And it kind of brings it closer to Halloween 3 in a way too, but I don't know. And then
Stonehenge, yeah.
Yeah, and then you get the feeling too, like I know that a lot of people aren't necessarily enamored with Joe Chappelle's direction in the film, and I get that. I actually think he does a pretty solid job, but I will say this. I don't know if it was his call. I don't know if it was Farron's suggestion. I don't know if it was somebody else. I don't know if it was coincidence, but I will say I do appreciate the fact that not only does the movie nod to, the previous films and classic horror and some of the setups and whatnot feel very classy and classic in a way, but they cast a couple of actors who had been in previous horror classics. The young nurse who actually spirits Jamie to, brief safety at the very beginning, who was part of the cult. She was in the horror classic, the 70s horror classic, Audrey Rose. And then you have Mama Strode being played by the woman who was in Don't Be Afraid of the Dark, the original 70s TV movie. So I just think it has a really interesting pedigree. I think there is a respect that Halloween 6 shows not just its own franchise, but the genre. And, I think that's something that a lot of people don't really discuss or want to see in the movie. I think it's easy to lob stones at it because it's a wonky sixth entry that's easily overlooked now that we have these big prestige Blumhouse Universal movies. But again, damn it, I'll be the guy who shakes my fist and defends the movie and calls it good, actually. Damn it.
Yeah, it is good. I had no idea that the Celtic origins go all the way back to the first film's novelization. That really surprises me. We'll get to it eventually. I forget which version of the Halloween 6 origin script also basically recreates that scene.
Yes.
Oh, I think it is the 666 origin one where they transport themselves through VR into a Celtic, 1,000 years BC moment, and they sort of have a very similar sequence.
Yeah, the VR thing in the Phil Rosenberg script is a trip.
It's so weird. I can't lie to you. In my post-resurrection haze, I kind of thought it was funny and worth worth looking at, this VR stuff, which we'll get to in just a little bit. But yeah, I think that sums up my feelings about Halloween 6 in general. If you don't mind, why don't we jump ahead into the version that we never got to see, one of which, titled Halloween 666 The Origin, written by Phil Rosenberg. So, would you agree that this was one of the most troubled Halloween productions in history?
I think it has to be the most troubled. Like, from what I've read, there is no, like, I didn't even understand what the film was really until I really started diving deep into it. For the longest time, I was under the impression that, again, I was telling you about my Phantom Limbs master list, like Halloween 6 was at the top because, it's an important movie to me. Hell, I mean, there probably wouldn't be a Phantom Limbs if it wasn't for Halloween 6 in the first place.
Cool.
And so, to me, I'd always heard about this Tarantino Halloween 6 that Scott Spiegel was going to direct. So, to me, I'd always thought that it was one project, one thing. And what I realized after I was lucky enough to interview Scott Spiegel, and I did some, digging, and what I realized is that it wasn't one project. It was kind of like 3 projects that were ultimately kind of Frankenstein together before the entire thing fell apart.
Mm-hmm.
And, and what I found was, if you want to go ahead and dive into it.
Mm-hmm.
So there was an idea, after Halloween 5 had come out, Mustafa Akkad, who was the godfather of the Halloween franchise, he started casting about for potential writers for a Halloween 6 not long after the 5th film had come out. And one of the writers that he approached was Quentin Tarantino, who at that point had written the spec screenplays True Romance and Natural Born Killers, neither of which had been made at that point. And so Tarantino was approached, and ultimately it didn't happen. But even the fact that Tarantino was considered by Mustafa Akkad, on the strength of his spec scripts, I think is pretty cool. But in an interview with Michael Hoffman for Consequence of Sound, Tarantino said that basically he knew coming in the pitch on Halloween 6, he knew that he would have to sort of account for the big mystery of Halloween 5, which was whoever the hell the Man in Black was, which nobody knew. It was just a mystery that had no answer at that point. And apparently he never figured it out, or he never cared to. He didn't know who he was. But the only thing that Tarantino said that he knew about his take on the movie was that in the first 20 minutes of the film, basically the Man in Black, who he describes as being kind of a Lee Van Cleef dude, which I love, the Man in Black and Michael would just be traveling Route 66, stopping at coffee shops and the like, with Michael killing everybody in sight, just leaving a trail of bodies in their wake. And essentially, I mean, it kind of sounds like the opening of Natural Born Killers, only with the Man in Black and Michael, and I kind of love that idea, but if for whatever reason it just never happened. So after
it also kind of gives me a little bit of From Dusk Till Dawn.
Yeah, totally.
At least the first half of it.
Yeah, and I mean, my God, how cool would that have been? Could you imagine
so cool,
a Tarantino scripted Halloween at that point in his career? Like oh God, it would have been amazing. But but it didn't happen. And so they eventually, Akkad had drafted a writer named Phil Rosenberg.
So it seems like Phil Rosenberg, the brother of, I believe, Scott Rosenberg, who is a working screenwriter in Hollywood.
Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead, which is great.
Yes, and I think he did the new Jumanji films too, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, wow.
So working guy. But Phil had never written anything before, was not in the union, had nothing under his belt, was just like a big horror fan at the time. Don't know how exactly he got involved with the Akkads, but I guess he had a pitch that they liked good enough, and they sort of clutched onto it for a really long time. Yeah, but this guy was not a professional. He hadn't worked on anything, and he was just like a big horror fan. And reading the script that he wrote, it kind of makes sense. It feels a little bit fan fiction-y in a way.
It's funny that you mention that, because I will say that impresses me then, because on a technical level, I do think it's a pretty solid script. I think where it fails is I think it fails the characters and it fails the world that's been presented to us in Halloween up until that point. Like,
Mm-hmm.
you know, by having like Lovecraftian portals and VR trips into the past and shit like that,
It's
like,
very weird.
but should we dive into like a synopsis of what it would have
I
been?
would love it. Would you be able to like give us a bit of a synopsis on this film?
With a deep breath, yes, I can. So there was a draft that I read. It was dated April 6th, 1994. It's titled Halloween 666, The Origin. Deep breath. The lead is a character named Dana Childress. She is a 22-year-old NBC News reporter from Chicago who is she's given an assignment to travel to Haddonfield with her with like a news crew and her older colleague and potential love interest, even though the man is in his 40s. His name is Robert Clifton, and their job
Hot.
their job is to cover the first Halloween celebration the town would have had in a half decade since the events of Halloween 5. Now that's basically story one. Then we're introduced to Tremblin' Tommy Doyle, which is maybe the worst wrestling nickname ever.
Yeah.
Who is described as 29, tall, lean, and wild-haired. And I mean, much like in the eventual film, Tommy is portrayed as a Myers obsessive, you know, collecting clippings and books and photos on the Halloween murders. And in a cutting edge twist, Tommy also uses a virtual reality apparatus to project himself into realistic scenes of Celtic
Whoa.
sacrifices.
Wild.
Yeah, that was that's a shame. But
Yeah, like a Ouija VR headset vibe.
what the hell? Like, you know, it's so strange.
Very
It's
weird.
such a weird choice. But
I guess they were very mystified by the internet in 1994. It was very new.
Yeah, but what's crazy about a lot of those movies back in the 90s is that you're right, they do seem mystified by it, but they also have some pretty definite, concrete ideas on how it all works. And then you watch those movies back then, and it's like, no, you had no idea what the hell this was. Like, why?
No.
Why
They
do
weren't
it?
even, and they didn't even like open a book. They're like, no one will ever know. We know now, guys. We do.
I do love the Lawnmower Man, but it's a tough watch at times.
But do you love the Lawnmower Man too?
No.
Oh, well,
I will say this. I was excited to see that movie back when it came out, and a couple of years ago, after the Scream Factory edition of the first movie came out, I rewatched the director's cut. Still think it holds up. I really do love that movie, but you know what? I went ahead and bought the DVD for the sequel, which I think is called Job's War or something like that.
Hell yeah.
I watched the first 15 minutes of it, and I actually genuinely found it to be unwatchable. Like there is no understanding of film language to be found in that movie. I just could not do it. But
I've only heard bad things.
oh, it's so bad. Love Matt Frewer, but he deserved better. Tommy in the script early on when we meet him, he even visits Sam Loomis, like in this really early scene, and we find out poor Sam, he's housed in a mental ward after having suffered 2 heart attacks.
Honestly, finally, because this man was unwell for the last few films.
I would like to think that Rosenberg was trying to do Donald Pleasance a solid by only having him pop up in one scene in the script. And really, honestly, Loomis is only there to sort of pass the reins of the franchise on to Tommy. You know, Tommy becomes Loomis 2.0, and then
which I kind of like.
I do too. I think that would have been the way to go. But that's kind of like the second leg, or the second story, as it were, in Halloween 666. And then the third leg is Michael himself, who, and I like this, and I understand if people would hate this or find it funny, but I think there's a way to make this idea work. Michael is reintroduced in the screenplay as a homeless man sleeping in an alleyway next to a dumpster, and there's a sequence that follows this group of assholes dressed like Clockwork Orange droogs who decide to celebrate the holiday.
Dressed like that?
Yes.
I didn't. Okay, that's heavy-handed.
They are literally like it's Halloween, and they're dressed like all of the milk slugging droogs, you know, like Malcolm McDowell led in Clockwork Orange, and they decide to celebrate the holiday by viciously beating this guy who they expect to be a common homeless man. And we then enter into a point of view shot, much like the the original 78 film's opening, where he basically murders all of the men pretty horrifically in the alley. And then, Michael pops on over to a homeless shelter in search of a bed, and he sees a TV promo of Dana's station, doing the return of Halloween to Haddonfield. And, I believe it says in the script, it's quoted as saying, he storms out of the shelter. It's pretty much on at that point.
She emotional.
Yeah. And then, and that's
it. Break someone's hand, I feel like, in that scene because they try to change the channel, which feels rude.
You don't fuck with Michael's viewing,
No.
But that's it. That's pretty much the setup. You have those three subplots that eventually dovetail with one another. And, Dana and her crew pursue the story. Tommy sort of rages against the town's upcoming Halloween celebration. And then Michael just glides around in the background until he's ready to strike. And I will say, there is pretty early on, it's a pretty goofy, but it's a still pretty fun scene. Michael goes to the small shop and he murders the owner in this very Friday the 13th style kill. He uses a barbecue fork and he plunges it into the back of the guy's head. Sick. And out of his mouth. And, the poor man's dentures sort of hang on the tines of the barbecue fork,
Oh,
but it's here. The reason he went there, it's here where he's reunited with the shaped mask, the Shatner mask that he's become kind of synonymous with. And there's a quote directly out of the script where Michael actually mask shops, and I kind of love it. It's and I quote: he picks up a Freddy Krueger mask, casts it aside. Picks up a Jason mask, casts it aside. At last, he pulls down one of the signature Michael masks. He tears off the price tag and puts it on. He turns to us. The fit is still good after all these years. Michael amble. I can't even say this with a straight face. Michael ambles out of the store. Party time.
Oh, gosh.
It says party time.
And it is, because it's party time. So many it's cringy when things reference the real horror universe that we live in. This movie does this a bunch. Like, there's real Hellraiser references, there's real Friday the 13th references. Just allude to it or make it sort of like something different. When you really touch base with our reality of franchises, you lose me right away.
I do love that Michael kind of pulls a Goldilocks in the store and finds the porridge that's just right with his shadow.
That's
mask,
true. And he is the OG. Like, this is the guy. This happens in the Etchison Halloween 4 too, where there's all of those different horror movies playing on the 3 drive-in screens. There's like a sequence where he's being where Jason Voorhees is being projected onto Michael Myers as Michael Myers kills someone. And it's always kind of alluding to the fact that Michael is the OG and these guys kind of swept in afterwards, which is true.
They're pretenders. I do love the Etchison script for, there's a sequence where Michael is he like 12 feet or is he like 40 feet? It's something crazy.
I know, it's 12 feet. I always thought it was like 40 feet, but it's only 12 feet.
Well, I love that idea simply because, there was the idea that Michael in that is kind of like a tulpa. He is created by thought. He's created by the fears of the town. And I remember reading a review of the script once where they were like, and this was ages ago when it was finally unearthed. And they were like, yeah, for some reason, Michael grows to be like 12 feet. And it's like, well, that's not arbitrary. They're all watching, these slashers on a big screen. So all of a sudden, these slashers, this killer becomes larger than life. So of course, Michael would be 12 feet tall at that point. I had no idea if they would have been able to pull that off in that movie, like visually. But
oh God, no.
I would have been up for.
I love that script, though. I have to say, all of these unmade scripts that I've read for the series, except for this one, have been really good. Have been better than the things that actually got produced at the end of the day, which is not surprising.
100%, yeah. And this one, it's it has its problems, but some of it's
a silly girl. It's a silly bee, but it has a lot to love. Something that I was hoping you'd be able to expand upon is the Judith Myers portal into another dimension. Do you think you could give us a bit of a seminar on that plot of the story? Because I'd love to know more.
Seminar? No, because I don't know what the hell is going on there, but I can tell you what happens.
That's good enough.
As a reader, I can tell you what I think happens. Basically, in the strangest twist possible, Tommy's housemates steal the headstone of Judith Myers. Why would you do that? That's like
Mistake.
You don't steal
Would
the
you not,
headstone.
though? Oh, I guess not a real dead person, actually, yeah.
Well, not a real dead person, but in the world of Halloween, if you're going to steal a headstone, don't steal the headstone of the sister of Michael fucking Myers. That's like, you don't stand
smart.
in a mirror and say Candyman 5 times, and you don't steal the Shape's sister's headstone. That's two things you don't do. But they did it. They did it. And as a result, when they do that, somehow, some way, it tears a hole in the fabric of reality, leading to another world. And they're like, I think at one point there are tentacles glimpsed inside of the other.
Oh, really?
Like
I
in the
definitely
schism?
heard about the tentacle stuff. I thought maybe that was in like a later Spiegel, like a touch-up version. But was
No,
that the tentacles were in
Spiegel-
this version?
I think I might be conflating two things.
I know there's so many. There's so many versions of this project in the world.
I know that Spiegel didn't want to do that, but I think he's the one who said that. Now that you mention that, I think he's the one who said that there were tentacles, but in the Rosenberg draft that I read, there weren't. But there is like
Yes,
a light play, like there's like an opening, like a portal or whatever, and then from there, we. I think Clifton gets killed by Michael. The Man in Black is revealed to be
my God,
revealed to be Father Carpenter, who sounds
yeah.
Like,
this is important.
I don't understand this. Like, so he's revealed to be Father Carpenter, but everything about his description and his dialogue, it sounds very much like Reverend Jackson Sayre from Halloween 4.
Which I think it is supposed to be. I think it is supposed to be him.
But why did they call him Father Carpenter? And why
because
does he go?
They're stupid, and they made a mistake.
I was going to say, why does he go from being a reverend to being a priest? To being a priest, like it's like
I think he just didn't know there was a difference between the two things. To be honest, Rosenberg.
I hate to say it, I think that's it. It's just like,
and I wouldn't either. Listen, we're Jews. What the hell? How are we supposed to know this stuff? And he didn't have the internet. Can we leave Rosenberg alone? Sorry,
priest, reverend, whatever they're all.
Whatever. It is a fun character, and it is one that I'm kind of like, no, it should not have come back. He's very funny in part 4, the priest that gets drunk in the car with Dr. Loomis, and then Dr. Loomis is like, I like you, you're like me, crazy. I'd love to see a road movie with those two.
The kinship that Loomis finally finds with another fucking batshit insane
guy. Yeah, and it's the first time we see him smile without like mania.
Yeah, it's like
there was a little mania.
He feels he found a brother at one, and plus, what's crazy is I'd like to think that somewhere out in the ether, there is an entire franchise where Reverend Jackson P. Sayre is hunting his own evil, and who's
he's
like Michael.
Got his own.
Yeah, exactly.
Oh my God, he's yes, I love it.
I love the song, oh, we're gathered by the river. I dig it. He's Carmen Philby. He is a gem in that film.
Oh my God, you know your shit, Jinx. That's so impressive that you had that at the go.
But that's part of the reason I dislike the Rosenberg draft is that they take this character who is very obviously, even though he's crazy, he is obviously kind of a force for good, who is hunting evil, not to be a part of it, to obviously demolish it. And here it turns him into just a weird, goony fucking guy. And it's like, why? Why do that? Why turn him into, a villain? Why turn him in? It doesn't
bad
make
writing.
sense.
That's why. Bad writing. Also, calling him Father Carpenter is the most cringe move of all time.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any sense. And and now he's evil and like is trying to, I don't know. I don't really understand his purpose other than it's bad. What is his deal? What is his objective in this script, in your opinion?
Well, that's a great question. I don't think it's one that the script cares to answer. Maybe Rosenberg thought he would get the gig to write Halloween 7 to explain that shit at some point, but it never happened.
No, he sure didn't.
You know what else is crazy?
Tell me.
Dana is revealed to be Michael's long-lost third sister. So this is a family that continues to expand. We got
23andMe, honey.
We have in the second act, in the back half of the second act, we have Tommy using his VR rig and a Samhain program, like you noted, like a high-tech Ouija board to show Dana Michael's origins. That again, going back to the original novelization. I see. Here's the thing, though. I can't believe that Rosenberg was such a fan that he went back and read the novelization that Curtis Richards wrote, because it doesn't.
But it's the same thing.
It's the same setting, but it's a different.
I don't know. It's 1,000. It's 1000 BC in a Celtic village where a priest curses a king because he wouldn't sacrifice himself. It's a little different story-wise, but there's so much that are the same.
It totally, I think it's definitely the same setting. Obviously, Rosenberg probably saw the second film, heard the name Sam Hain and says, and was
that explains
okay, well, I can do something with this. Whereas what I love about Curtis Richards' novelization is that in his origin, he's able to find all the things that are now hallmarks with slasher films. We have young people, we have sexual desire, we have celebrations, we have and weirdly enough, even though this wasn't the case in Halloween, it becomes a case in later slasher films. We have a slasher to be a burgeoning killer who is humiliated. And that drives his mania later on. So whereas, what Rosenberg does is kind of it's kind of dull. It doesn't work as well for me because.
And it's in Ouija VR in 1994 because it would have been. Yeah, because he wrote this in 1994. Ouija VR in 1994. I say it with attitude. I don't mean to. I love it.
You should. No, please do.
No, I support it. I like it. It definitely would have been hated enormously from 1995 till 2020. People would not have liked that.
Well, not only that, but you have Michael getting tricked. Okay, not only do you open a portal into another world, but you have Dana. You have 22-year-old Dana tricking Michael by leading him into a cemetery and tricking him into falling into the otherworld fissure at his sister's grave. Portal closes, taking Michael to hell. Dana and Tommy survive, and then Father Carpenter / Reverend Jack laughs to himself at the end, which kind of clues us in that Michael isn't going to be gone for very long. There's this,
because they had to do it by 1 a.m. How dare? Okay, so in case people aren't totally up to speed with the true chaos outrageousness of this subplot, somehow when Dana and Tommy. I think Dana goes into the VR back to the fucking 1000 BC. She discovers within there that Judith Myers' gravestone is this portal to the Celtic otherworlds, and that the only way to get rid of Michael is to send him through the portal back into Celtic other worlds, and then that would be the only way to save her life, because otherwise he would relentlessly, supernaturally keep going until he killed her and anyone else in the bloodline. What? Sorry, what? Huh? But it doesn't make any sense, but I love it. And I'm sorry to interrupt you. I just felt like
no,
please to know.
Yeah, it's all kind of terrible. So it should come as no surprise to anyone that Mustafa Akkad read the script and I don't care if this story is apocryphal or not, I choose to believe it's true. When he finished reading the script, he threw it across the room.
I've heard it too. It has to be real. It has to be real because it's such an iconic Hollywood story. It's almost as... Were you the one... Okay, there's the story about James Cameron and his pitch for Aliens. Have you heard about this? Are you the one that informed me that it was a lie? Okay, someone informed me this was a lie. So this isn't true, but it's an urban legend that James Cameron went in to go pitch Alien 2, and all he did was he had a whiteboard and it said Alien, and then he added an S at the end, and then like a line through it to show that it would make money.
Okay, you know what? We're gonna go ahead and print the legend on that one and say that that's true because it deserves to be. It deserves to be true.
It's so good, and then but it's not real, but it's real. You know what I mean?
I just choose to believe that after he did that, after he put the S and the two marks to make it a dollar sign, he should have just tapped the board and said, "Game changer."
Bye. He drops the mic. Goodbye. something that interests. Okay, before I move on to the Gehenna behind the scenes of Halloween 6, I am okay to wrap up on Father Carpenter. Saying it makes me want to die. They had a character in Halloween Retribution called Dr. Hill. That worked, other than the fact that it was a man. Come on,
Yeah,
guys. Dr.
that's
Hill's a woman. Get it together. This, anytime someone like names a character after a legacy horror director, I want to slap them in the face. I want to just go slap you. No, it's too obvious, guys. I'm sorry.
yeah,
I'm sorry.
no, yeah. We Halloween deserves a heroine named after Deborah Hill. Like it's long past time.
Or even just Deborah would be great. Deborah would be an amazing Gen Z name. Bring
This
back Deborah. I feel like it would be a cool name.
the Halloween 18 series, they totally should have named the granddaughter Deborah. Like, come
They
on.
should have done a lot of things in Halloween 2018, actually. I talk about it a lot. I have received a listener feedback
Oh, God.
that they get it, that I don't like Halloween 2018, but you're going to hear about it because Halloween 2022 is about to come out and I get to review it for Dread Central. I'm not saying I made up my mind. I haven't seen it yet. Maybe I'll love it.
It may be great. I hope that it is. I genuinely do, because I'm a fan of the franchise and I'm always wishing it well. I will say this. I am concerned that
Okay.
every piece of marketing that I see, from 3-minute long trailers to 20-second TV spots and everything in between, for every new stitch of footage that I see, I have yet to see a single human being in any of those bits utter a line that doesn't sound like some grand declaration. Like, there are no human beings speaking in this movie, apparently. Everybody is like,
No.
evil dies tonight. Let's hunt
Yeah.
him down. It
Let it
ends now.
burn! Yeah.
It just, come on, guys.
I mean, listen, these are fair critiques. I would say that I'm okay with it. I want it to be like back to Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 and the crappy like canon sequels, where it stops trying so hard and you just give me a crappy Halloween sequel that I've been waiting so long to watch.
it just it can be fun. Just make it fun and scary. That's
Yeah,
all it
don't
needs
make
to
it
be.
try so hard. And also, it's so mask for mask these days. It's so like doodly with the guns and the action.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry, everybody.
No, I think this was necessary.
Okay, thank you. Yeah. So Halloween 666: The Origin by Phil Rosenthal is
Burke.
Berg. Thank you. A messy nightmare. Love it though. I was wondering. Oh, did we talk about John Carpenter's bid to get in a Halloween 6? Because I don't think we did, and I kind of want to get it on the table.
No, I didn't know he was ever attached to 6. I knew about 4 and 7.
Oh yeah. So hopefully I blow your mind with this one. So okay, after Halloween 5, I believe this is the case. I could be wrong. Akkad waited too long to make a 6th film, and I believe the rights reverted. And so there was a bidding war to get the rights to continue the Halloween franchise. Akkad teamed up with Miramax so they could bid together and save some shekels. But someone else that was in the bidding war was John Carpenter. And John Carpenter had a pitch for Halloween 6. And there are quotes from him, I believe, in Fangoria back in the day, so it was legit. He wanted to send our dear friend Michael into space.
Oh, I have heard of this. Okay, yeah.
Straight-faced, like no humor, no like irony here. He wanted to send Michael into space. He believed because it would take it in a whole new direction. True, literally. And you could never come back. And I say that to Leprechaun 5, because they did come back.
I think he was just talking about the quality. Like, there's no coming back from that.
That's true.
That,
I choose to believe he was talking about space. That there's no coming back from space. Which, I mean, there is, but I can't tell you the mechanics of that.
The only thing I have to say to that is, John.
Come on,
John.
It's probably trolling. It was probably like an ultimate troll move where he was like, "You did this to my franchise. Now I'm going to take a big dump on it." And you.
I do love that about Carpenter. There's this kind of Jekyll and Hyde thing with him. I met him at a convention. There was a long line. It wasn't too terribly long at the time, but I've seen massive lines for him. And every person I know of who has met him, like at conventions. And I can say this was my experience and the experiences of everybody in front of me because I was watching to see what kind of dude he was like. Soft spoken, completely gracious, very nice man, complete gentleman. But then you get like interviews with him or
Yeah.
something, and he seems like a grumpy old man. And there's this Jekyll and Hyde thing that I kind of love with him where, I believe that he might be trolling people when he talks about the Michael in Space idea. He woke up on
I
the wrong
believe he
side
would
of the
make
bed.
it, but I do think there's a trolling vibe to it.
You know
Yes.
what? Have him make Escape from Earth with Snake Plissken, round out that trilogy, and let one of Snake's obstacles be the shape in space.
It rhymes.
Yeah.
I like that. He did go on to make Ghosts of Mars not too long after that, so clearly he had space on the brain.
He did. He sure did.
Ghosts of Mars, never seen it, never will probably. Not a bad concept.
I only have one thing to say about Ghosts of Mars. John.
And Shocker.
Hey, Shocker is good at least.
Well, I know.
Wait a second.
I have something.
Okay, you fooled me. Shocker is Wes Craven. Well done.
Oh no! Well, I'm cutting that out. I can't look like a fool. I can't be that much of a fool. I recently got a new comment. No, what's it called where someone leaves a review on Apple iTunes, and it was 3 stars, and he just complained that I definitely got the year wrong to Jaws 3, and that my guest had it right, and then I course corrected them back to wrong again. And you know what? That deserves a 3-star review. Sorry, I was belligerently wrong about Jaws 3. Not my least favorite movie, guys. Not my least favorite movie.
I will say that Jaws 3D is better than Jaws: The Revenge. So there's that.
I have never seen Jaws: The Revenge, but I'm so curious. I have to see it at some point. I did, yeah. So this episode was about Jaws 3 People Zero.
Yeah, I remember.
But
I'm a listener. I told you.
I know. I can't believe it. I won't believe it. Who could listen? All of you do and never stop. I'd love to see that, but I would love to see Jaws: The Revenge next summer. I'm gonna have to come back to that.
Well, good luck.
I love the idea of a Jaws. Yes, I'm not a shark. Of a Jaws, like traveling hundreds or thousands or hundreds of thousands of miles for revenge. So beautiful. It's like a reverse Moby Dick.
When you get the chance, when you watch that atrocity of a film, make certain that you immediately follow it up with Richard Jenny's stand-up bit about that particular movie because it will have you in tears. It is so good.
I'm excited now. Oh, now I'm sad I have to wait all the way until summer because I refuse to watch Jaws movies outside of summer because they're so good in the summer.
I don't know where you're at right now, but I got to tell you, in the Midwest, from what I've heard, and I can tell you for a fact in Florida right now, it still feels like summer. So,
oh no, global warming! I'm sorry.
Yeah, it's I'm a stone's throw away from Halloween, but it's 85 degrees, so what the fuck?
It's hot here in Toronto too, but you do have the leaves looking a little different, so visually you're getting the vibes.
It doesn't feel like the Halloween season has begun in earnest yet. It feels like a lie, and I don't like it.
I don't know. How can you say that? Because we're both in the middle of our Halloween series, and we have, I'm assuming, I can't speak for you, I can only imagine, been devouring so much Halloween content in the past month.
I did rewatch Halloween 6 in advance of this chat, and that was the first Halloween movie that I've watched so far. So I'm ready. I need to dive in. It's been about 3 years since I've done a full series rewatch, and I'm thinking I'm gonna have to do that in the next week.
I love that for you. I really do. It's just so we can get you to Resurrection.
I will go ahead and clue you in on something right now, just to spur on like part of our conversation for the hell of it. I have Halloween 6 running in the background right now. So
that's good podcasting. That's good journalism, actually. It's a good trick.
Looking at Jamie Lloyd's placental fluid as we speak. So
yeah, I like how. Okay, the scene in Halloween 6 where Tommy goes to the bus station and it's just, first of all, there's just a baby in the basement screaming, nobody cares. And then there's also just this woman's blood and placenta fluid literally everywhere to the point where they come and collect it. And everyone's just like, it's a bus station. Very outrageous.
I just wanted to see the scene where, somebody walked into that bathroom, like in a hurry to catch their train. they see this poor girl, like, where there's, like, blood everywhere, and obviously something horrific has happened. And then they shrug and use the urinal anyway. You know, they got
That
things
is
to do.
that's a bus station vibe, okay? That that you know what? I'm making fun of the movie, but bus stations, that is the energy of bus stations.
Oh, it
That's
totally is.
it's real. It's real.
If somebody saw that,
Um,
if somebody saw the kid, like, screaming, like, in a cabinet hidden away, they
and
would
the,
shrug, piss, and then tell themselves, ain't none of my business.
I mean, in Haddonfield, you know, you want to stick out of trouble. Um, yeah, absolutely. I have to say, I am making fun of it, but the first segment where she stops the truck and goes in to the bus stop or the bus station, really good, really spooky.
It is no, it's there are sequences in this movie. I mean, Michael killing Kara's mother, like stalking her around the house, like
Ooh,
going inside and then meeting her like out in the yard, like that shot looking up, and she's just like
yes,
Michael,
so
and he's
good.
carrying an axe, and then you see the whip of the axe and the blood spattering, the sheets fluttering in the wind. Like it's a
Beautiful.
evocative sequence. This movie, no bullshit, holds maybe one of the finest, I would say, among the finest 5 seconds in any slasher film, maybe any horror film ever. And I say that with a straight face. I mean it genuinely. It's also one of the greatest bits of performance that anybody ever gave
Can
in
I
any horror film.
guess? Can I
Please.
guess? I'm gonna get it wrong, but I had a similar reaction watching it this time around. So my impulse is that I'm wrong, but I'm gonna give it anyways, just in case I'm right. Paul Rudd in front of like there's this beautiful orange lights and the trees outside before it starts raining blood. So that's my official guess.
Okay, so that's a good one, and I'm actually weirdly enough close to that moment in the film
Ooh,
right now.
spooky.
He is. I think Paul Rudd is genuinely great in this movie, and it
Yeah,
is
I
a
do too.
Paul Rudd moment. So you're close.
Oh,
There is a sequence in the theatrical cut that I think is absolutely amazing, and nobody talks about it. I would write articles about this one moment. There is a sequence where, okay, so I gotta say, happening on screen right now is John Strode stalking through the house, asking where his dinner is. He is about 3 minutes away from getting fried in his basement.
he's
Uh,
good in
I
this. I believe that guy was real.
The performance is
Yeah,
fantastic. I took
really
to
good.
Twitter. I told you I rewatched this movie yesterday. I took to Twitter. I posted a pic of him, and I noted that were it not for the fact that he was decapitated via electrocution, that dude would have been MAGA as hell.
Oh, I'm sad that you took it that direction because I was gonna say, yeah, he's a piece of shit, but he's a daddy. He's kind of hot. Sorry, I'm sorry, but he
He's
is. But
you
he's MAGA as hell. There's no doubt about
you
it.
give him 20 years, that dude would have worn a red hat. Like you know it.
Oh no. Well, he's certainly not nice to his family. So that's a step in the direction, I think. So
He's like
yeah, you're not wrong.
he's like Biff from Back to the Future if you age him up a little bit and smack him in the face with a shovel a couple of
Yeah,
times.
yeah, he is. Okay, well, character aside, kind of into him, kind of hot.
Sure.
But character, here, no, of course, I can't support that spousal and daughter abuse. It's terrible. It's so rude,
He's a dick. He's a total dick.
and he dies real bad / good,
But
and it's
his
scary too.
yeah, although it doesn't make any sense because nobody's head does that when you electrocute them. Like
I
it's
wasn't looking. I'm still a baby. These movies I've seen 1,000 times. I don't look at the really gross scenes.
What?
I just can't. Yeah, I can't. I couldn't look at Jamie. I couldn't look at that one. I didn't look. I'm a bigger baby than If you know me, you'll know because I'll watch a movie and 50% of it is me with my fingers in my ears, rocking back and forth, with my eyes closed. Why do I like horror? I don't know. I have problems.
Okay, so what you need to do, you just need to sort of baby step your way toward watching harder stuff. Okay, so start with something not that bad. There's a movie called A Serbian Film. Just rent it.
Okay, I'm writing this down. Hold on, I'm writing it down. A Serbian
Yeah,
film.
just
Got
just
it.
give that one a shot. Keep your eyes open during the entire time. And I will say,
Okay, I will.
When-
It's gateway horror, right?
totally. When you make it to the
Okay.
end of that, you're going to be able to watch anything. Trust me on that.
Yeah. Okay, all right. And you're talking about the American remake, of course.
Oh God, no. There's no such thing. There's no there's no
starring Pretty
un-American.
Little Liars.
There should be.
Because there is, and it stars a Pretty Little Liar. Don't know how to say her name.
All right, so I will say John Strode does not give one of my favorite bits of performance in any horror film ever. But
Paul
Paul Rudd,
right.
Paul Rudd does. And yours was a good guess.
Okay.
But actually, it's this moment in the theatrical cut only where Tommy is in the bowels of Smith's Grove. He finds Kara. He's trying to beat the door open with a fire extinguisher. And he senses something and he turns, and there is the shape having just stepped out of a door, like his own room, like he's just hanging in the basement of Smith's Grove as well, like lying on a cot when he's not busy killing people. And the shape turns and looks at him like, the fuck is that guy doing there for? Like, what's he think he's doing? And
funny.
So Paul Rudd as Tommy Doyle, there's this amazing moment where he stands there staring at the shape like in abject horror, which is great. And then it turns into this moment where he lets out this exasperated laugh. He just grins ear to ear and gasps and laughs, and it feels so real. It feels like it's such a big swing, and yet it feels completely true to the guy he's playing. And I love that moment so much. It's my favorite moment in the entire film.
It's so good. And he's so good. And it's so close to being absolutely terrible. But he nails it. He's just going at a 10. He knows what he's doing, too. He's about to become the world's most famous hunk. And here there's like nothing to lose, really. And he's just delivering it. It feels almost Hammer horror-y.
Yeah, he's got a decent career ahead of him, I think, that Paul Rudd. You know?
Mm-hmm. And he looks exactly the same.
It's like, fucking freaky.
It's weird.
Like, we're going to have to start asking some tough questions in about 5 years.
It's like the Druids. Sorry. It should always be the Druids.
That man, it's like him and Jennifer Lopez. Their baby, there's totally baby's blood involved. All right?
Yes. Elizabeth Bathory has helped both of these with their skincare routines.
100%. Like, there's no other way around it.
And that's fine, because they look great. And that's so funny. Yeah, there's some... This movie is really good, really beautiful. Okay, so that scene where John Strode finds, I believe, someone's head in or not someone's head, but like bloody clothing in a like machine, like a laundry machine.
Yeah.
Had me thinking, like, that's a trope. Like, there's so many horror movies, and it's usually a head where if someone finds like a body part or bloodiness or like a head in a laundry machine and then a die immediately after. Is what I'm saying resonating?
Well, I mean, there's kind of a range there because on the one hand, you have My Bloody Valentine where somebody hears a thumping in a dryer.
Yes.
Or a washer. And they open it up and it is a head and it's creepy and it's awesome and it's even better in the unrated cut of that film. But then you have the flip side of that where you have a dryer that's making a thumping sound and the character moves up to it and they open it and they hold their hands out expectantly and their tennis shoes fly right into Brandy's hands and I still know what you did last summer.
That's amazing.
And so, I appreciate both. That's
so funny. First of all, I genuinely thank you for I still know what you did last summer reference. There needs to be more of them.
Movie's a blast.
And I'm going to give you one more example. I feel like there's a similar scene in Identity that is sort of basing a lot of my opinion on.
Ooh, that's a good movie. That's a movie that nobody talks about.
Now, that is a movie that I agree nobody talks about. Where is Identity 2, baby?
Identity
Amanda
Harder.
P, are you busy? Yeah, you're busy.
Well, I mean, given the end of the first movie, she's probably not that busy.
No, that's true. I feel like none of them are. You know what? It reminds me of another movie that no one ever talks about. Suspect Zero. That's one no one talks about, right?
That is a very good movie. The long distance viewing, the psychic, Ben Kingsley, creepy battle.
I saw it in theaters with my dad. I feel like no one else was there because no one else has seen that movie but you and me and my dad. But I love it.
Yeah, and a buddy of mine. I remember
Carrie-Anne Moss vehicle. Sorry.
Yeah, and Aaron Eckhart. I mean. I love it. There should have been a follow-up. I understand why there wasn't, but there should have been. Weirdly enough, from the director of was it E. Elias Marriage, the guy who did I think it was either Begotten or Misbegotten, and he also did Shadow of the Vampire, the movie about the making of Nosferatu.
Well, that I know. Okay, so this is a art house Arthur over here.
Yeah, and they got him to do their big studio serial killer movie. And what's great about it is that movie could have been crass and commercial, and yet another ripoff of Silence of the Lambs a decade after its relevancy. And because they brought that guy in, he made it something special.
Totally. It kind of feels pre-Zodiac, kind of.
Totally. Yeah. God, Zodiac's a great film.
I would say Zodiac has one of the scariest murder scene, I think, for me in any movie, which is by the river or by the lake sequence.
Oh my God. Yeah. Tying
It's
them up.
too realistic. I think, I don't know, I haven't seen it in so long, partially because of that scene, but I think it's one of the most realistic, like, slayings I've ever seen in a movie.
Yeah, and it's just I think what's so scary about it is its nonchalance. It's just
too scary.
That is a masterpiece of a film.
It truly is.
Oh,
I mean, I feel like, wow, we've really covered a lot of terrain. I'm really proud of us.
And we haven't even gotten to Scott Spiegel's take yet.
Oh my God, yes, of course, which is sort of what I'm most excited about, and which I have the least information on because I'm kind of relying on your knowledge here. So should we move on to the Scott Spiegel world of it all?
Let's do it. I'm super excited about this.
Yeah, I am too. So do you want to give us, if you can, like a bit of a reminder of how Scott Spiegel got involved, which was through Tarantino, but then like how we got to his sort of iteration through Rosenberg's?
Yes. So
Rosenthal?
By this point, Mustafa Akkad had sold off the distribution rights. He sold the distribution rights off to Miramax for Dimension Films, Miramax's genre arm. They were doing all of their horror and sci-fi stuff and whatnot. And by this point in the project's history, Tarantino had already made Reservoir Dogs. He had already made Pulp Fiction, and From Dusk Till Dawn was not that far off in the future. So Miramax, who had a relationship with Tarantino, obviously, asked him and his producing partner, Lawrence Bender, if they knew of a director who would be a good fit for Halloween 6. And they both suggested the same guy, Scott Spiegel, who is known for, I believe he co-wrote Evil Dead 2. He did a great slasher movie called Intruder, which if you've never seen it, that movie is so much fun.
I haven't seen it.
Oh, it's so good. It's so good. And it is like pure grindhouse, but winking and nodding to the audience and just having fun, but also has just marvelous practical effects. The kills in the movie are insane.
Is this before Evil Dead 2?
Yeah, it's right around the same time. In fact, one of the main characters, well, I wouldn't say main characters, one of the side characters, rather, is played by Sam Raimi.
Love it.
Yeah, and Ted Raimi figures into it too.
They were cuties back in the day. Yeah. Sorry about it. They really were.
I got you.
Like weird cuties, but that's my type.
But so Intruder was awesome. Bob Weinstein screened Intruder, and from that point was like totally on board with Spiegel as the choice to direct Halloween 6. So that was kind of like, Dimension's input at this point as distributor. And of course, it being the Weinsteins, they were all about trying to force their their choices on the filmmakers. So even though they were only there to distribute the movie, I just did a recent Phantom Limbs on what would have been the fourth Crow movie. It was going to be the Crow Lazarus, which would have starred DMX and Eminem, and it was the same.
I remember. I remember. That's awesome.
It was it's the same damn story where it's like, the Crow belongs to Edward Pressman, and Miramax, they were only like the distributors. That's all. But the way the deal was worked out, like, they had this weird kind of veto power where it's like, yeah, you can go ahead and make your movie, but if it's not what we want to make, then we'll just release your movie in one theater and it'll make $20,000 and fuck you. And so I'm guessing that's kind of the same thing that happened with Halloween because, again, they're just distributors, and yet here they are bringing a director to the table, for Mustafa Akkad and company to sort of approve. And so, with Spiegel being Weinstein's choice, and I should mention here, I was able to speak to Scott Spiegel in an interview last year. Nicest guy, and told me loads of like really cool stuff. He mentioned that at this point, he and Tarantino might have thrown around some ideas, but because to me, I was still like under the assumption that it was all one big project. Like Tarantino was going to write it and Spiegel was going to direct it. And again, that's not really the case. Like Tarantino was approached years prior he came up with a little bit of a take, but it never went through. And then they went to Rosenberg, and then from Rosenberg we get to Scott Spiegel. So when Spiegel was in the mix, he and Tarantino, he said, might have batted around some ideas, but ultimately Scott Spiegel was given Rosenberg's beat sheets, kind of noting like what the story was, in little bullet points. And Spiegel took the ideas from Rosenberg's beat sheets that he and the producers had liked. And then he kind of, he came up with his own take. He made his own notes on the story. At that point, he was given Rosenberg's full draft, which which he did not care for. He commented on it in an interview with Fangoria, apparently when he didn't realize that he was on the record, and he really knocking the hell out of it. Yeah, oh yeah.
Yeah.
And Rosenberg later responded in a letter that was published in Fango 151 that I mentioned in the Postal Zone, where
I read that too.
Oh yeah, he was unhappy.
So rude about Intruder, by the way. So sassy.
He was, but he was hurt, But he
and hurt people hurt people.
Exactly. He took a few pot shots in return, and so at this
but he did say he liked Evil Dead 2, which was funny.
Yeah, but it was kind of like one of those things where it's like, yeah, I might have liked Evil Dead 2, but it was probably all Raimi, It's like you get that feeling from his feeling, but Scott Spiegel doesn't need to prove himself to anyone. He's awesome, but at this point, like Tarantino wasn't involved in the story, and according to Spiegel, he likely only ever would have been a producer, if anything, on this version. It was never. Well, I won't say never, but he said it wouldn't necessarily have been something like Quentin Tarantino presents Halloween 6. It wasn't going to be that.
I know, and I so badly want to title this episode Quentin Tarantino presents Halloween 6, but I can't do it because it literally was quoted that's exactly what it wasn't.
You should do that and then just let people wonder. Let them get to this point in the podcast where they're like,
and say, gotcha.
Exactly.
Oops. Yeah, that may happen, guys. Sorry.
Go ahead and do that right now. Go ahead and just turn right into your mic and just like, gotcha.
Gotcha, bitches. Sorry.
Love it.
You know what? That's how I feel.
Love it. So Spiegel came up with his take. There was the possibility of bringing on Graveyard Shift screenwriter John Esposito. Graveyard Shift being the Stephen King adaptation, not the Vampire in a Cab movie. And so that was kind of mulled over.
I'm sorry. I thought it was the Rats one. Wow.
No, it is. It's the Stephen King one and not the vampire one.
Okay. I'm so confused, and now I'm less confused. Thank you.
No, and according to him, like he was told that he might have even been given the option to write the thing as well as just directing it as well. But the last hurdle that he had to sort of make was meeting with Mustafa Akkad, and Spiegel he noted that Akkad wanted his own guy, whereas he was Bob Weinstein's guy, but he was given the thumbs up though. And this is so sad. Like he was given the thumbs up. He had a celebratory dinner at Mousson Frank's, because, hey, I'm directing Halloween 6 and, take everybody out, buy them dinner. Like we're going to celebrate. And then 48 hours later, his approval was pulled. And it's like, fuck.
Rough.
Like that's tough. Spiegel said
so Dimension Films though.
That's the thing.
So evil.
It wasn't them. They were all about him. It was actually Mustafa Akkad.
Right. Sorry. It's always one or the other because those Dimension and Akkad clearly did not have a good relationship, and they were always they were always in dick battles.
Which at that point, I don't blame Mustafa Akkad because he could probably tell, I understand him not trusting Dimension at that point. I wish he had trusted Spiegel, but I get it,
yeah, it's Weinstein country, for fuck's sake.
Yeah, that fucking guy. But, both of them really, from what I've read and heard.
I know, and isn't it sad that everything we ever have to write or talk about, they come up? Every development hell story, you have to talk about them to some degree, and it's rough.
It's funny. I just did an interview with somebody, and we talked about that. I was like, you know what? The Weinsteins come up so much because they developed so many fucking movies that they never made. They threw so much cash around developing these movies that never were. And it's like, it's great for me as a writer, but it sucks for me as a film fan, reading all these movies that could have been that never were because these guys couldn't settle on a fucking take.
I know. Some days, I don't know if you worry about this, but some days I'm like, am I going to run out of development hell stories? But then other days I'm like, no, I'm not.
No, I hear you. Well, the problem is like, not only, the first hurdle you have to make is finding out that they were meant to exist in the first place. And then the second hurdle is tracking down the people who had anything to do with it. And then the third hurdle has nothing to do with you, which is, the people agreeing to talk about it in the first place. And I had to sort of grow a thick skin. I had to get beyond that at a certain point as a guy who really wanted to tell like every possible story that I could run across, because there are some people who just don't want to talk about it. Like, it's whether it's painful or whether they feel it would hurt their career, or if they're just too damn busy, So I've gotten better over the course of the past year or so, just being like, okay, all right, I appreciate it. Thanks so much for your time, and just moving on.
I get that.
I will say the other heartbreak with writing like articles on movies that never were is finally landing an interview and then finding out there's nothing of any substance to it. Like, that's like getting all of the stars to align, and then you get to that point, it's like, okay, let's dive in. What is there to say?
Yeah.
And then like 3 minutes later, you're just like, is that it? Is that?
I find that on this topic, talking to people like you or fans of the works in general make for much more interesting episodes than actually talking to the creatives themselves, which sometimes is amazing, no doubt. But talking to the people that care and like fantasize and romanticize this stuff, I always get good conversations out of them.
Yeah, and that's what I love about this podcast, is that you do invite on people to sort of talk about, because that's the thing. I mean, my article series is all about, I'm trying to, and this sounds like a weird lofty goal, but I swear it's why I'm doing it. It's like, I see it like horror archaeology. I'm trying to find and uncover as much as I can, and I preserve as much as I can. And sometimes that's going to be every possible scrap of information, every beat of the story that would have been told. It's going to be like this 8,000 word story, like a massive article. And then sometimes it's not going to be, there's no grand story behind why it came about, why it didn't happen. And for example, one just went up this past week about, honestly, a movie that I thought was going to be like this. It was a huge find for me. I found mention of it in an old Starlog. And it was a movie called Phantom, which was going to be the Phantom of the Opera, updated to World War II era Nazi-occupied France, written by the writer of Fatal Attraction, directed by Wolfgang fucking Peterson.
Wow.
And I tracked down the writer, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is going to be amazing. And then I spoke with him, and he was like, oh, yeah, I was brought in because there was another writer and he had a take, and Wolfgang wanted me, so I came in and wrote it. And, they wanted Dustin Hoffman, and Dustin Hoffman didn't really want to do it, so the project fell apart, and that's pretty much it. And the story would have been basically the Phantom of the Opera that you all know and love, except it would have had Nazis in it, and that's pretty much it. And I'm like...
Yeah, been there.
Is that it? Is that... Really?
You forget that you're talking to... This is just people working. This is just their day job, in a way, for some people.
Yeah.
And for us... it's so much more sacred. So yeah,
really, for me, it's
I
like,
understand that.
Every time I interview somebody, I'm just like, tell me a story. Make me dream.
Yeah, totally. And as I said earlier, like, I really believe it. What you're doing is like really journalism, and it's like it's totally. I see it as totally different from this, which is like talk show energy, and that's what I enjoy doing. But Phantom Limbs is like really journalism. It's really well done, and if you guys have not had a chance to check it out, absolutely go over to Bloody Disgusting and read everything, because if you like this podcast, like, you're gonna eat that column up.
Yeah. Oh gosh, I appreciate it. Thank you so much. I'm keen on anything that regards this sort of this corner of the genre, like unmade sequels, remakes, movies, and whatnot. I mean, and plus, I will say, there seems to be, in recent years, ever since I want to say like Jodorowsky's Dune came out, where people realize, hey, there are all of these stories that were never told. Let's find out more about them. And now we have, we have the best movies never made. We have your podcast. We have my column. There was Joshua Hull's book that came out earlier this year. There was Dave Alexander's book, Untold Horror, which came out through Dark Horse not that long ago. I love that. And plus, to me, like, There was Taking Shape 2 that came out last year that was specifically about unmade
Oh, I
Halloween
read a
movies.
chapter out of that today.
Yeah, yeah. And so, to me, and I've seen this a little bit sometimes. Like there's a little bit of there's a kind of like competitive thing to it.
Territorialism, or yeah.
A little. But to me, like, and by the way, I will say this: I've never gotten that from you whatsoever. Um, but to me, I'm just like the more the merrier. Like let there let's all write an article on Halloween 6. You know what I mean? Let's
I'm
all
surprised not everyone wants to. Like, to me, it's just like, well, why wouldn't you? This is the most interesting thing in the whole world.
exactly.
Yeah.
And so to me, and plus, for example, like Taking Shape 2, there was so much great stuff in that book. And then, I covered for my own reasons. Obviously, I told you about my connection with Halloween 6. So, of course, if I was going to do like an October themed Halloween run, of course, Halloween 6 was going to be one of them. I'd interviewed Todd Farmer before. So, of course, Halloween 3D was going to come up. And
Hmm.
so all of those were kind of based on that. And Jake Wade Wall came up because I'd approached him about
Cool.
When a
Yep.
Stranger Returns. And he
Oh.
was, I
He
found
also
out,
did Halloween, right?
yeah, he did. So his Halloween was Halloween the Missing Years. And that literally
Yes.
came across, I had no idea that he had written it. I had reached out to him about When a Stranger Returns, which was the sequel to the When a Stranger Calls remake. And so, literally, I
Hmm.
kid you not, somebody had emailed me like, hey, you should really do an article on Halloween the Missing Years written by Jake Wade Wall, the guy who blah, blah, blah. And I was like, what the fuck? I'm interviewing
Yeah.
him like 3 days from now. And so, I
Cool.
literally, when I hopped online with him, I'm like, sir, I know that we're talking about When a Stranger Returns today, but could you set aside a little bit of time to talk about your Halloween too, please? And so,
Uh-huh.
that's how all my articles came about. And it's funny, like, for example, reading my Halloween the Missing Years from him, he told me a lot about its development, but none of its story. But if you pick up Taking Shape 2, they have loads of stuff about his screenplay and like what the story would have been in
Mm-hmm.
there. And it's like that doesn't make me sad. That makes me happy that it does exist. And it's the same thing with like, obviously they talk about Halloween 666 and they do a full breakdown of Phil Rosenberg's draft and they have an interview with Rosenberg, which is awesome. I didn't even know how
Mm-hmm.
to find the man. But the
He's
flip
in the
side,
Celtic dimension.
yeah, exactly. I needed to use my VR apparatus to
Yeah.
contact him.
Yeah.
But the flip side of that is that I got to interview Scott Spiegel, and Spiegel had found his notes, like his handwritten notes, which we can dive into here in a second if you want, like some of the stuff that he would have done.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely would.
And so
But
as a result,
yeah.
like I have some stuff that they don't, and they have some stuff that I don't. And what I love about that is like that doesn't make me feel competitive. That doesn't piss me off that somebody like scooped me or something like that. I'm like, no, the info is out there. That's amazing. Now
And thank God, because I am not here to provide good information. I'm here to provide infotainment. And so the more the more research out there that I can get, the better. So yeah, thank you to both of you.
can I suggest instead of infotainment that you change it to dangertainment?
Oh, this is Dangertainment. Who has a Dangertainment t-shirt? Because I have to find out how to get one for me and
I
Emily.
will ask him for you. My Hammer Pub co-host Paul Farrell knows that I despise Halloween Resurrection, and so in a group message tonight with myself and Allie Chappell, our Hammer Pub co-host, he posted a pic of himself wearing a Dangertainment shirt, telling me it was
Fuck
just
yeah.
for me, and I was like,
You're blessed. You're booked and you're blessed because what a friend. What a friend. Also want to say Ali Chappell, Canadian Queen. We know her and we love her.
I love Allie. She's awesome. She is one hell of a filmmaker. I don't know if you've gotten the chance to see her short film yet.
I
Um,
haven't. I've only seen her acting. I've never seen her filmmaking.
so she made a short film that is, and it's always weird, talking up like your friend's work. It's like because
Oh
inevitably
no.
the people you're talking to, you're like, are they going to believe me that my opinion is genuine, or do they think I'm saying this just because
No,
we're
because
friends
it's
or
like
whatever?
mom, or like you're seeing us in rose-colored glasses, and that's beautiful too.
Exactly. But if anybody knows me pretty well, they know that I'm not that dude. Like, I'll be honest. Not mean spirited,
Oh.
but I'll be straightforward. I'll be honest. And
Okay,
I will
that's good
say,
to know.
her short film is genuinely fantastic. Like, it's very well made, very well directed, very well acted.
Is it is it in the ecosystem, or is it in the festivals? Like, what's the deal with it?
It just played. I want to say it played the Salem Fest.
That's where my short film premiered. Salem
Yes,
Horror
yeah.
Fest. Shout out.
So it played there. I don't know when it's going to become available to view or when, but she is working on her first feature, which I believe is called Malediction. And I believe she wrote it, she's directing it, and she is starring in it too. So she's wearing all the hats. And honestly, I am genuinely giddy to see it. I think she's going to kill it. So.
Oh yeah, and she's like a well-known name in the little horror sphere, and we support everything she does. So Allie, good luck to you. We're hopefully gonna be able to see that short sometime soon.
Absolutely. All right. Well, should we do it?
I'm ready.
Should we talk about Spiegel?
My bod's ready. I don't know about you, but I feel it.
All right. Well, I should say at this point in the background, it's kind of like perfectly setting the mood. I have Michael Myers power walking down a corridor, and he is.
You gotta keep fit. You gotta keep fit, and you gotta do it the way that you gotta do it.
Yeah, it's funny that you mentioned keeping fit because it is so obviously a different Michael than the one that's in the rest of the film, who's a little bulkier. You know, he's Mike's had a couple of cheeseburgers like earlier in the film.
But he's in a basement. There's not a lot of place to do your calisthenics, so I understand.
But no, he's looking trim and fit, and he is a power walking son of a bitch at this point in the movie. But yeah, so Spiegel, okay, at this point, he said he thought as though Mustafa Akkad didn't feel as though he was the right director from the project. So that was kind of it for him, unfortunately. And then from that point, we eventually make our way to the Daniel Farron's Joe Chappelle version, or Joe Chappelle, rather, version. Scott Spiegel was kind enough to dig up a bunch of notes that he had made around that time while he was working on his own take. And, he was working from Rosenberg's draft. He was taking ideas from it. He was melding them with his own. And, we had a conversation where he sort of, he dove into them. And he said it was basically like a beat sheet in the making. It was just kind of like miscellaneous notes and ideas, A to B to C, assorted notes along the line. He said it didn't really have anything to do with the earlier draft per se, other than having Michael and Loomis. There's no virtual reality. There's no portal, no Lovecraftian craziness going on. He wanted to streamline it and ground it. And apparently his opened with, so you remember at the end of Halloween 5, we have Michael Myers being broken out of jail by the Man in Black, right? I don't know if you remember, in the producer's cut of Halloween 6, there is a quick flashback where Jamie is kidnapped as well. But before she sees like the Man in Black and a weird group basically loading Michael into the back of a van, right? So apparently Spiegel hit upon that idea, and he had this opening sequence where Michael was broken out. He was loaded into a van by several guards. He's being transported, and he crashes the car. He gets the hell out. He breaks free from these chains that he's in. He grabs the guy by the neck, and I'm reading directly from his notes here. Lifts him up, shoves his head through the top of the vehicle. Crunch. The guard dangles helplessly. Myers grabs the other guard, slams him into another guard, pushes them through the back door. The other guard, with his head through the roof, sees a sign, and then he alluded to the fact that the sign likely... Well, he says, the guard loses his head in the most gruesome of ways, and then the vehicle crashes and explodes. So from that point, after Michael crashes the car and gets the hell out, he is apprehended and he's thrown into prison. And there's actually a prison montage. Like, Michael Myers is, again, I'm quoting.
Oh my God, really?
I love it. I love it.
Mike in prison.
Quote, there's a prison montage. Quote, Michael Myers is stripped of his personal belongings, including his mask. From this point on, we see everything from Myers' point of view only. Michael is then fingerprinted, hosed down, and thrown into a cell. Then there's a courtroom scene. The trial of Michael Myers. Loomis argues his case... Myers is beyond psychiatric help. The beast must die.
LOL.
Which I love. Now, something that he did pull, obviously, from the Rosenberg draft, we're then introduced to Dana, noted here as the last living blood relative of Michael Myers. We open with her having a nightmare, and quote, she's dreaming of dead Myers relatives in the cemetery. It's her turn to join them, her destiny. She falls into an open grave. Michael appears above her, shovel in hand, and begins burying her alive. That, to me, sounds a hell of a lot like a sequence in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2.
Yeah.
So, like, creepily so.
Yes, it does.
But I dig that, so I'm not
It's
gonna
also a
knock it.
lot like Halloween 3D, including the name Dana and the burial stuff, which is interesting.
Yeah, like, it's funny in reading all these disparate versions of Halloween, not just this one, not just Halloween 6, but going throughout the entire franchise, like, how many times ideas sort of recur, whether or not there's any connection between creators or not.
I mean, they own it, right? Like the Accods and Miramax, like they own all of these Bibles and all of these outlines and all of these scripts. So like it makes sense that Tommy from 666 is similar to Tommy from The Curse of Michael Myers. Like I get it.
Totally, yeah. And so apparently, like, all of this is just a prelude because he notes that at this point it's like credits. Carving jack-o'-lantern, blood oozes from orifices. 1 year later, Halloween Eve, we are introduced to the new Haddonfield. The Michael Myers case has proven very lucrative, and I love this idea. The town is like a macabre Graceland, and Halloween is Elvis's birthday. I love that. I love that so much.
That's a vibe. I like that too.
Media people have set up camp. It's the 30th anniversary of the initial murders, and we set up a guy named Miles Anthony from Inside Source. Then it's interior prison, Michael being strapped to the chair. They're going to fry his ass, and then the power goes out in prison. Obviously, there's a prison break. And Spiegel started to describe the sequence, and then he was like, I'm not going to tell you what happens next. I might use it in another movie. But there's a lot of action in this darkened prison at night. He kills everybody, escapes, and he's going back to Haddonfield to join in the 30th anniversary of the murders.
Hell yeah.
Now, at this point, so Michael's headed back. Haddonfield's going to have this big blowout, 30th anniversary Halloween party. He brought Loomis back into the proceedings, which I think is kind of cool. He's not just like a one-scener anymore. He's an active player. He's hanging around. He's tracking Myers down. He's kind of doing the Sam Loomis thing. And again, he's reading directly from his notes. Michael's on his way to Haddonfield, picked up by the people on their way to a big party in a pickup truck. One of the kids tries to jokingly pull off Myers' mask, and Myers wipes them all out. Now, that was one version of the traveling scene. There was a variation that he described that I actually thought was much cooler. That finds Michael basically boarding a train to get back to Haddonfield. And again, quote, he is a ghostly passenger seated by himself. At the first stop, a slew of Michael Myers get on board, drinking and carousing. All partiers headed to the anniversary party in Haddonfield. A female Michael Myers, Michelle Myers, sits on his lap. Finally, they all begin removing their masks, all except ... Next stop, Michael exits the train. This other passenger steps aboard and immediately screams. Michael has wiped out the slew of imposters. So that at that point, there was, a pretty solid idea of what his movie was going to be. And then he had to admit at this point that his notes began getting like skimpier and skimpier. They were growing increasingly sparse.
But he was a busy girl.
Yeah. He noted, Myers stalks unsuspecting Dana. Big set piece, including Loomis and a sheriff, where everyone, and I love this, realizes the tricks are up and people are dying. Myers is on the rampage. Everyone in town panics. And so at this point, one of the heroes kills, or all the heroes, kills someone in a shape mask, thinking it was Michael. And he noted, so this is how Act 3 starts off. Haddonfield is deserted. It's midnight. Loomis has an autopsy done to make sure they really got Myers, but Myers is alive. We get into some cemetery shenanigans. There's a cemetery climax, some missing coffins, some missing headstones. Loomis, sheriff, boyfriend. Showdown at the cemetery. Loomis uses weapons in his wheelchair to thwart the shape, and I love that. I love that Loomis has a tricked out weaponized wheelchair.
He really would.
Loomis's last stand. The shape escapes. His bloody mask on the spike of the cemetery fence is all that remains. Dana and Loomis are the last people standing. Epilogue. The surviving sheriff talks with Dana after the climax. He tells her he has some troubling news. As it turns out, the autopsy that was done when they weren't certain that they had killed the real shape ultimately revealed that the body was that of Michael Myers. Dana looks ill.
Huh.
Then who is wearing that mask and doing the rest of the killing? At that same moment, in the window in the background, we see a figure wearing the Michael Myers mask. He stares silently at Dana. Cut to black. And when I said, like, there are recurring ideas when it comes to, the various unmade Halloweens, this idea of a second shape pops up over and over and over again in various versions. I think the Scott.
It's scary. Yeah.
Well, totally, because it's like, well, what the hell is it? It's
Yeah.
there was I think there was like the Two Faces of Evil, which you can read about in Taking Shape 2, that talks about
I
two
have.
different shapes.
Yeah.
And then the Scott Milan version, the guy who wrote Mother's Day, which is a damn good movie, he did a Platinum Dunes pitch about two traumatized boys who grow up, and there's a shape, and the shape is basically attacking people, but the shape is attacking people in two separate places. And it turns out there are two shapes doing the killing at the same time, and one is
malignant.
Yeah, well, one is Michael Myers, and one is Michael Myers' like childhood friend. And I don't know if I have this right or not, but I want to think that Michael Myers actually dies at the end of it, and so the remaining shape is like this other kid. Which
Michael dies at the end of one of these movies? Crazy.
He'll be back,
Yeah, he will.
But that's pretty much it. That was the Spiegel take, and again,
Cool.
It basically existed as notes, but I don't know, I think it would have been a lot of fun. I love the Halloween 6 that we have, but at the same time, I'm greedy. I kind of wish we had gotten the Spiegel Halloween 6 as well.
I am too. I want to, if we had a alternate reality machine, this is all I would do, is just go see all the different alternate Halloween movies.
Yes,
this would be my number one priority.
100%. I would love to do a line of comic books based off of, like, I would love it. In my wildest dreams, there would be a Phantom Limbs line of comic books that in some way bring these stories to life.
That's a really good idea, Jinx, and it's not impossible to make it happen down the line. I love it. I mean, this happened. Comic books and graphic novels has salvaged so many of our development hell misfits, like Freddy vs. Jason 2, stuff like that. Like, it's a really beautiful way to be able to get these stories back. Behind the Mask did it really well.
Yeah, totally. Like, was that great? Have you read that?
I haven't, but I have to. The first one sold out, if I'm not mistaken.
Oh, I know they've done multiple printings, so it might be possible to.
Okay, I'm sure it's not that hard to find. I'd love to, because I'm a huge fan.
It is so damn good. I would recommend you almost not read it, simply because you'll be sad that it's not a movie, but at the same time, you'll be so happy that you get to experience any version of that story. So go ahead and do read it, because it's so damn good. It's so damn good.
I love those characters. I love those movies. We did an episode on it not long ago.
I remember. I listened.
I'm just such a big fan. That Scott Spiegel stuff was truly hella fascinating. We're so lucky that we had you here with your knowledge. We all my favorite episodes are the Jinx episodes. This is not a lie.
I'm happy to come back anytime.
Oh, I joke about this all the time. Not even joke. I'm like, how do I get him to co-host? How do I get us there? So just know there's a long con with you involved, and just be wary. Be wary.
Fair enough. I'm cool.
Jinx, where can we find you in the universe? How do we find you? How do we support you?
Okay, before I say that, I gotta ask: are we not going to do the traditional "Is this movie going to happen?" wrap up, or are we just assuming that it's definitely not?
I haven't known how to do that with these Halloween movies, but let's fucking do it. Let's do it, because why not? Because what we say goes. So yeah, Jinx. Well, what are we gonna do? Are we saying Spiegel's 6? My dog's freaking out. Are we saying which one are we going with?
Yeah, let's do the Spiegel. I think Spiegel.
Okay. Jinx, is there a shot in hell?
None whatsoever.
Not even a little. Not even in development hell. No.
You know what?
There's no way. There's no way.
I will say this: if I get my dream to come true, and there is a Phantom Limbs line of comic books, I will beg and plead with Malek Akkad to allow us to do Scott Spiegel's Halloween 6 because I think the world needs it.
Fuck yes. And can we also get Retribution?
Oh fuck yeah! As many as he'll allow. Yeah.
Let's do all of them. They don't all need to be done, but let's do most of them.
I would unabashedly love to see Halloween 3D realized in some
I was
way.
just gonna say, can we do a pop-up book?
No, do the what do you think about doing like a traditional anaglyph like red blue lens 3D comic book?
Yes, 3D? It's the only way. It's the only solution is that. Yes.
I'm excited.
I love that.
This is gonna happen.
I am too. I support this journey. Okay, so it's a no. Yeah, it's a no for me too. This franchise has been rebooted and repooted way too many times. But who knows what's going to happen in the future with Halloween? I think Halloween is going to exist in some shape or form forever.
I see what you did there, and I appreciate it. And I
Yeah,
really only have one word to say to you after concerning that. John,
we love you, John. And your music's so good. You're like David Lynch. Doesn't matter what you do with film, your music is always going to be excellent.
He's incredible. He really is. I kind of hope that he has a second life as a guy who just scores films, you know?
Yeah, me too. Sacred Bones Records, how lucky are they?
Oh, no doubt. But I will say at the same time, like, The Ward as your last film, like, that's your mic drop. John!
It can't be. Cody and him got to team up, make something to be the final girl, because that doesn't hold up.
We need one more. We need one more film from him where, even if his last movie had been like Cigarette Burns for Masters of Horror,
that wouldn't have been that bad, I think.
No, it would have been okay. Would have been, that would be a better mic drop than Ghosts of Mars, but then he went and did Pro-Life and The Ward and fucked things up again. So.
I never saw Pro-Life, but I trust you. I trust you, and I don't trust John.
You don't need to see.
Oh, Johnny boy. We're grateful and we love you. And the score for Halloween Kills is sounding incredible.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay, Jinx, I have to say it again. How do we support you? How do we find you? How do we give you our money?
You can find my writing at Bloody Disgusting. I write Phantom Limbs, which again is about, unproduced horror sequels and remakes. I write a column called Larval Inc. that's all about wildly different initial versions of movies. I've done a few of those. Like, for example, I looked at Chimera, which was a thriller that eventually became the movie Ghost Ship, and changed wildly. One of them was... that I'm kind of proud of. I got to talk with Darren Lynn Bousman about his screenplay, The Departed, which was eventually adapted into Saw 2, and the differences plot-wise between those are massive, and so on and so forth.
I know that's a bizarre legacy there, for sure.
I know. I wish he would get to make The Departed, and from the sounds of it, he wants to, and I hope that happens.
It's a filmmaker dream, though, to like some contract thing that your agent managed to squeeze, let you direct Saw 2. Very cool.
Absolutely. And just let the man direct Leprechaun already. It's ridiculous. He shouldn't have to beg.
I know. I know.
Crazy. I do Mask of Insanity, which is all about talking to actors and actresses who have been behind masks or latex in horror films, basically talking about how they got the roles, their overall thoughts on them, and then basically talking about like the craziest or funniest stories they can relate about the times they were on set. And it's fun, it's fluffy, but I have a lot of fun
Tim
with
Curry?
It. Not yet.
You know what I'm talking about, for Legend.
Oh yeah, or It. I'd be happy with either. Or hell, Frankenfurter. Give me Rocky Horror.
Really, anything he's ever done. Truly,
he's the damn best. And then I have one called Blood Ink Staples, which is all about horror comics that people need to be reading. And then
good title.
You can find me at screamatics.com. You can find the podcast, which again is currently doing a side project called Hammer Pub, which is all about Hammer horror films and has myself, Allie Chappell, and Paul Farrell drinking and providing Hammer commentaries. And from the sounds of it, Josh, you're going to be a guest in the future. You're going to do the Woman in Black. I better
be. I keep hinting. How long can I hint? God.
Okay, you are welcome as soon as you would like, but I will definitely at least set aside the Woman in Black for you.
Yeah, give me Woman in Black. That's the one I want.
Rock on. All right. Otherwise, you can find me on social media. I'm on Twitter. That's at Jinx1981, JINX1981. You can also find me at Screamatics. And hell, I'm on Instagram. You can find me. That's at Jinx 740-941. I am sorry for all the damn numbers.
He does not want to be found, people. He is Laurie Strode 2018.
740-941 is my version of calling myself Carrie Tate.
Did you say Carrie Tate? Yeah, I love that.
Yes.
I love a Carrie Tate reference. Jeez Louise. Where's the Carrie Tate multiverse? Thank you, Jinx.
Excellent. Rock on. Thank you so much.
All right, well, thank you so much for listening, and we'll be back with another episode of Development Hell.
Thank you for listening to the Dread Podcast Network.